or a single person living off of that one salary, that rent right there is more than half of what you're making.
The FBI has just raided a large corporate landlord in an alleged rental price fixing scheme.
I just got notified that March 1st, my rent will be increasing to $2,023.
Because if you're Gen X or you're a boomer, then you already know that we didn't need to have a second or third job in order to be able to afford to get into an apartment and live comfortably.
Hey guys, it's Blahzaye. I'm just checking in to see if you are feeling like rent is so high that you could possibly be involved in a landlord rental price fixing scheme or a major hedge fund government project to artificially increase rent prices. Well, you just might be. Make sure to watch till the end to get plugged in on just how these prices have been rigged. Let's get into it.
People, the FBI has just raided a large corporate landlord in an alleged rental price fixing scheme. Things are about to get real. The FBI conducted a raid on Cortland Management, which is one of the country's largest corporate landlords. The surprise raid is reportedly a part of an antitrust investigation by the Department of Justice into RealPage. RealPage is basically a software company that recommends rent raises and prices on millions of units across the country. You can see where we're going here. As of 2022, Cortland Management owns about 85,000 rental units across the US. Not to mention, they used RealPage's algorithm to ensure a consistent vendor pricing across their entire communities. Some of the most notable pricing effects are actually in Atlanta. And since 2016, rents in Atlanta have increased 80%, despite high vacancy rates. Well, basically what's been going on is RealPage has been providing data that helps conflate rental prices, including property values for a lot of these corporate landlords. RealPage is being sued by multiple states, including Arizona. Quote the Attorney General saying that landlords were not competing at all. In fact, they were colluding with one another. Now, RentPage told CNBC that landlord customers are not required to use their rent increase algorithm. So I did some research. And according to the Dallas Morning Star, the suit cited that RealPage employees said that landlords adopted 80 to 90% of prices without any deviation.
Yeah, of course. Why would they not use that algorithm if they're going to increase their prices by that much? It was actually no competition in that rental market. Let's go to the comments. They need to raid Zillow. Bring back $600 two-bed. Damn, when was it $600 for a two-bedroom? Just that shock. Did you guys feel that shock too? I felt that in my bones. $600 for two bedrooms? Easily. So many people have been evicted. This investigation should have been done sooner. That is true. Everybody was getting handled, and it takes so long for that process to happen. And guys, this was just last year. This wasn't that long ago. And how long do you think this is entrenched into our system now? How many new companies have sprouted up that are doing this? How many landlords are still holding these rents extremely high, even though there's no demand, even though there's vacancies left, right, and center, but then people are still getting squeezed out of their rent money. The worst part is asking someone to make 3 times the rent is ridiculous. So you can easily qualify for a mortgage, but these rents, yay, man, you got to make all that money to afford this rent right here. You can get a mortgage. You can't get a mortgage. No, absolutely. How can we get the FBI to look into HOAs? No, seriously. HOA is a big concern. They can literally just raise your prices out of nowhere, and they can take your house in some contracts. Check your HOA contracts. Some devious behavior in those HOA contracts. They all need to be investigated. Rents are way too high. Go after all of them. Rent is crazy. They have reimbursed all tenants, and government should charge them for fraud or seize the properties. Tell me what you guys think. Next video.
I moved into my apartment in June 2023. I was paying $1,790 in rent. I just got notified that March 1st, my rent will be increasing to $2,023. And before everyone gets in the comments and says, you're doing this, you're making your choices. Okay, first of all, fuck you. I have a 2-bedroom apartment because I have a 1.5-year-old son, and I got this apartment because I researched every apartment within a 30-mile radius of where my dad lives, because my dad lives with my nephew. I'm the legal guardian of my nephew, and I need to be able to have quick, close access to my nephew. I take him to appointments, I pick him up from school, etc. What's shitty is that this is the market rate. So this is pretty standard if you want a 2-bedroom apartment. And mine's nice because it's new, but it's not fancy. It was made really like everything's plastic and falling apart. And it, for all intents and purposes, it's not a quality apartment. It's safe. I love living here, and that's why I'm living here. But I was talking to my landlord, and I was like, listen, I know this isn't your fault. I know you're not setting the prices of these, but what the fuck? This is not like a sustainable, like, how the fuck is anyone supposed to like maintain their tenancy. I said, should I expect another huge rent increase? And he's like, yeah, in September, there's going to be another like $80 to $120 rent increase. And I'm like, so let me get this fucking straight. I had to pay $5,500 to just get into this fucking apartment. I could live in a 1-bedroom. I don't want to because I just figured out crib training with my son. I pay electric and I pay fucking gas, which is another, you know, 100 to 120 a month, like on top of that. I hate that the issue is that I'm at a point in my life where paying another $120 a month in rent is like pissing me off. I know that the solution is to just make more money so that this is gonna happen and I'm gonna have more wiggle room in my budget and blah, blah, blah. But what pisses me off is if you're not making $6,000 or $8,000 as a single mom a month, you're just like, how are you gonna make it? Who wants to be roommates with people that they don't know? And how many people do you know that you could trust to live with and that it wouldn't ruin your friendship if you lived with them? And what if I just want to live in my own fucking spot? What if I really like the peace of mind that I have in my own goddamn apartment? Why isn't there some sort of fucking clause that says, oh, you're a single mom with narcolepsy and you have a fucking disability and you're making X amount of money and we're gonna give you like a little bit of a break. And I understand like life is a jungle and no one's trying to give out handouts. You know, you're hearing about how Elon Musk just uncovered all the government all the money that's going everywhere. Like the government isn't, in general, they're not looking to help people. We know that. Just keep coming back to like, okay, the solution is just to make more money, but there's only so many fucking hours in the day. I spent 45 minutes today researching other apartments in the area. I maybe have a tour scheduled next week, but here's the thing, it's like, yeah, if I get into this other apartment, like what is that gonna look like and how much do I have to put down? It's usually first and last month's rent, and then there's a damage deposit, and then there's usually a refundable pet deposit on top of that of a couple $100 or and then you know, like at least, and then a monthly pet deposit. And I have 2 cats and I don't want to get rid of my cat. I'm not making this video to be like, oh, poor me, like blah blah, but where my brain goes is I zoom out and I think about the bigger picture, and I think about like the regular people who are just trying to fucking survive, and like the average income and like what it cost to just literally survive. That's not like getting ahead, that's not saving money, that's not potentially owning a piece of property. That's literally just like, I'm making it until the next month. What is there, like 800,000 homeless people in the US? And when you think about like a homeless person, your mind might go to like all these extremes, but it's like, no, people become homeless because there's factors that are outside of their control, and they're doing their fucking best, and they get up every day and they have good intentions and they work, and they're not like selling themselves on OnlyFans, and they're trying to like do good in the world. But fucking bills are massive, man. It's expensive as fuck to just live and eat.
Yeah, guys, you see how she said multiple times, like, well, my only recourse is that I just go out and make more money. But she also mentioned that, hey, there's only so much time in the day, and maybe she doesn't have like a extremely high skill set or a developed career to where she can put in more hours and then just gen out more money, a better quality of dollar coming back to her from her hours put in. A lot of people can't do that. A lot of people can't scale that, especially when she has like a 1.5-year-old or 2-year-old at home, and she's taking care of other kids too. It's not possible. It's not feasible. And there's a lot of people that are in that situation where they are going to be priced out because the rents continuously increase because of inflation, because of dollars, and property will also increase in value. But our work, the hours that we put in will not increase. That $15 an hour, that minimum wage job, even if it's lower than that, $20 an hour, that's not going to increase. They're going to keep that going for as long as they possibly can to squeeze out profit from your labor. Let's go into the comments. They'll just keep raising the prices until everyone's homeless. I don't know about this one. That's where you start, people start using their constitutional rights. Your landlord is setting the prices. It is his fault. It's all their faults. As we just saw in that previous video where the landlords were actually colluding with each other to have those prices set. So, because if one landlord is like, okay, well, I have a lot of vacancies, I need to fill it, and I'm just going to drop my prices. The other landlord's like, hey, wait, no, don't do that. We'll just keep the prices here and we'll backfill you. And like, however they doing, they're colluding behind the scenes. We know that that's happening. Living with roommates in a house that would be be big enough for roommates, will save me no money. It's twice as much. There's no incentive at all. And why the hell do we need to work to death just to be able to live? I want to just be able to live and go out and enjoy nature. And property owners are forgetting providing homes for people is a privilege to house the community, to make the communities better, to establish stability. It's not supposed to be about greed. Tell me what you guys think about that while we move to the next video.
One of the biggest problems in this rental market, it's the rent itself. One of the biggest problems in this rental market, it's the rent itself. I am so sorry, but I am so sick of people saying, go get yourself a second and third job when you didn't have to do this. Because if you're Gen X or you're a boomer, then you already know that we didn't need to have a second or third job in order to be able to afford to get into an apartment and live comfortably. And if you're gonna sit here and say that bullshit, that is a freaking lie, okay? Because I remember when I got my first apartment, me and the hubby were each making $5.65 an hour, okay? We were working into our records. We were getting paid every 2 weeks. And yearly, that equates to $43,000, okay? $43,000, okay? When we got into our one-bedroom apartment, that was paying $600 a month. And that wasn't our first apartment, okay? I need to state that our first apartment, we had to save up money for a broker's fee, and that first apartment was in Parchester, and it was paying $700 a month. We not only had to pay a month rent, a month security, we had to pay them a broker's fee in order to get in that apartment, and we didn't stay there long because there was too many fucking rules. We were too young, and we were getting tickets, so we had to get the fuck out, okay? Moving into my other apartment, we got in there at $600 a freaking month, okay? And that was each of us making $5.75, and we were living just fine. We were living comfortably, okay?
Funny thing, that's the second time I've heard somebody be like, hey, we had it at $600 a month. Seemed like that was more so the average just getting that two-bedroom apartment back in the day, which is absolutely amazing. Put it down in the comments if you would jump at $600 a month for a freaking apartment.
Okay, we were living comfortably. And as I sit here and I hear people's complaints, which are very valid, that the rents are unaffordable because they fucking are. All right, you sit here and you tell them, oh, well, get a second job, get a third job. You didn't do that, sir. You didn't do that, okay? Because with $40,000 a year back then, okay? And I'm talking about my generation, which is Gen X. I'm not even talking about the boomer generation, but I'm talking about the Gen X generation, baby. We didn't need to get 2 or 3 jobs in order to afford an apartment. If you were making $30,000 a year, you were able to afford yourself a 1-bedroom, okay?
And hey, guys, think about that real fast, because I know you've seen the articles where they're like, millennials, Gen Z are the ones causing all the problems. They're so lazy. They're always job hopping, trying to find the next dollar that they can find. And when they didn't have that same thing, as he just stated, he's Gen X, they didn't have to do 2 jobs, 3 jobs, have a side hustle on the, side hustle, 3 jobs, 2 jobs, and then killing it at your main job just to survive and try to live comfortably. They didn't have to do that, but now we're lazy if we're not doing it. You know what I'm saying? The hypocrisy is wild.
2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, we're going to take it even further. And lots of times, even if you worked, you had some kind of federal assistance bumping it up to help you out to be able to raise your family, which is a lot harder for these generations to get. And when you sit there and you say, oh, that restaurant job is supposed to be for kids. Well, who the hell is supposed to serve you for lunch, sir? Those kids are in school. Who's supposed to serve you for lunch? You want your shit in a timely manner, in an affordable manner, and then you want kids to serve you. You don't want full-fledged adults because, you think that they should have gotten an education. We already see that that's a fucking scam, so what are you talking about? That's a very antiquated way of looking at life. The bottom line is that rents are unaffordable for many. And the fact that they're asking you to make 2-3 times the rent and people can't get a decent 1-bedroom for a fucking $1,000 a month because that's max what I think that they should be paying, okay? I don't think that a studio should pay more than $7,000. I don't think that a 1-bedroom should pay more than $1,000. I don't think a 2-bedroom should be paying more than $1,500. And I don't think a 3-bedroom should be paying more than $2,000. Okay, if you're gonna add all the extra luxuries and all these extra things, that's fine. Then you could bump that up. But don't bump it up to a point where it's absolutely unaffordable because it's ridiculous. And that's why we are where we are. And this is why we have such a freaking large homeless population. situation where people are living in cars. Get it together. Stop fucking lying like you were working 2 or 3 jobs, because you wasn't. You wasn't. Unless you had a big family and a 1 freaking income per family. Get out of here. Miss me with that. Fix yourself. Fix your.
But yeah, he said there has to be some type of formula where it's like, hey, you know, this is our average incomes. These are what everybody's making on average. And then you have all the rent incomes and the living, like the housing costs in the area. And you calculate that. And then you control the rent prices. New York already has hardcore rent control in some areas, right? And just as he said, if it's just like this should only apply to standard living areas, like where everything's plastic, like the girl before this video said, where it's not even luxury, nothing's fancy, you know, no marble in here. You know, we have the barely passing appliances in the apartment, right? That's the stuff that should be controlled. And then if you want to have the luxury side, then I still firmly believe in full capitalism. If people want to pay more for luxury because they have that type of lifestyle, then let them do that. But then there's still the majority of people on this side where it's like, hey, I just want like the basic necessities, and I don't want to be priced out, and I don't want to be homeless, and I'm just trying to take care of my family. I need that. And I'm one of the workers that works at fast food, right? I make $15 an hour, or I'm a janitor. You know, kids aren't going to be doing those jobs. Just as he said, what those kids are going to be in school. Let's go to the comments. Brooklyn rents were $500 to $600. None of these apartments are worth the money. $3,000 and above. When I was growing up, the poorest of people had an apartment they could pay. Second, third job ain't even enough. Yeah, college education is the biggest scam. Yeah, I mean, that's why, going to the trades has always been killing it, right? Especially like if you're an electrician or a plumber or anything to do with masonry, that's big. Carpenter, all that stuff is great, and you don't need this college degree. And also, hey, flip that. Even on the cyber, if you guys are going cyber, all those are cyber certificates that you get. So like your cybersecurity plus and everything, if you're a cyber guy, throw down in the comments, give some people some knowledge, plug them in on that type of stuff. You don't need a college degree. Gen X here, first apartment, $550, 2-bedroom, easy. It's why many are living with roommates just to be able to pay for an apartment. And imagine doing that with like, you have kids and stuff. Like when you have kids, you don't want to sit there and have roommates whatsoever. You just want to be by yourself, be with your family. And if you can't do that just with two people working in the house, and you can't do that, that's a problem. I'm a Puerto Rican boomer and had a great apartment in Williamsburg on my own, working one job and going to school. Those were the days, not anymore. Having to put up $10,000 to $12,000 just to get a mediocre 2-bedroom apartment is insane. How are we going to survive if it gets worse? Throw it down in the comments, guys. Next video.
I would have to disagree that $2,100 a month is damn cheap. And a lot of people have commented this, but it's just not true. So I'm going to explain why. The national average salary in the United States right now is $59,000, and $59,000 after taxes, your take home every month is about $3,800. So if you are a household or a single person living off of that one salary, that rent right there is more than half of what you're making. And that's just the average. So of course there's going to be people that are well below the average who cannot even afford a $2,100 rent that you guys are saying is cheap. Now, I'm not ungrateful at all. I'm blessed that we are able to afford this $2,100 of rent, which we got at this rate because we moved during COVID, during the height in 2020. We moved there in 2020 during the height of COVID, and they were having a really good deal because they were desperate to get people in. Now, unfortunately, that rent is about $3,000. But why are we normalizing? Why are we normalizing $2,100 a month of rent as being cheap when the majority of people in the United States don't even make enough to afford this type of rent? So many people have roommates. So many people who are families and have multiple children are living in an apartment instead of living in a house, which is...
And I want to get to this point before I forget it real fast. She said, why are we normalizing the $2,100 rent? The increase in property is just a factor from inflation increasing, right? So as the dollar gets weaker, the real assets start to increase in value, and there's nothing you can do about that unless you completely deflate the dollar. So properties are always going to increase. Not only is this tied to major wealth creation and major wealth transfer, that's how most most families build their wealth is through real estate. It's tied to all of your 401ks and your retirement portfolios. That's why BlackRock is buying the stuff. The major hedge funds are leveraging all these properties because they know this, and they know that the dollar is getting weaker, especially amidst these times where all these policies, these new Trump policies and everything, and the tariffs are coming out, where lumber is getting more expensive. All the materials to build more properties is getting more expensive. Will that increase so not only will new builds increase property values, but the weakening of the dollar increases it as well. But here's my thing. Nobody really wants the price to go down because it's all tied to everybody's wealth. So when you're trying to fight it, you're fighting a losing battle because this is still tied to all of our retirements, right? All your 401k stuff is still tied to that. All the REITs, which is like the real estate investment trusts, are still tied to the value of the property, and that's what they're charging their rent off of. Because not only is the value going up, but they're getting charged more on the back end for state taxes and insurance, which goes into that property as well, which is what makes it so hard to control it. But that's why we vote these people in, because they are supposed to figure this stuff out for us so people don't become homeless. I'm sorry, I had to chime in on that.
Which is what we are saving for. We're never going to own this apartment. We're all just throwing our money away, renting instead of buying. We have no buying power right now as millennials and as Gen Zers. Why aren't we able to afford to buy things like the generations before us did? How come we're the ones that are screwed? I was born and raised in California. It's not going to be possible for me to buy a home here because the average price of houses here, and these are old houses, like 1950s houses, is about $700,000. I thought I made decent money. Last year was the most I ever made, right? I thought that we would be able to afford a house. We're not going to be able to afford a house that's almost $1 million. It's just not going to happen. So I understand people saying $2,100 is cheap. It's not cheap. It's cheaper than other places, but we are all of us are being overcharged for rent, and these houses are insanely expensive, and there's like no chance of most people ever even being able to afford to buy a house in their lifetime. That's sad.
And I think once everybody comes to this realization, especially, like Gen Alpha and Gen Zers coming up, they're like, hey, wait a second. Every house is $1 million. There's no way. It's not even possible. No matter what kind of job I have, it's not possible. That's when the real change is going to happen. Right now, it's like a gleaming hope. It's like, well, as everybody has been seeing, as you've seen in these videos, where it's like, if I just work harder, if I just get, 3 jobs, I can make it work. I can make it work. And then, but once that axe comes down, it's like, nope, that house is $1 million. That shack looking house with like rats in it and everything is like $800,000. That's when the realization be like, okay, well, no, we need change like now. We're not playing around anymore. Let's go to the comments. This is not the American dream. Tell me if you guys think this is the American dream. Throw it down in the comments. Do you think everybody should just pull themselves up by their bootstraps and just work harder? Let me know. I'm curious, because there might be some sentiment of like that, in the video. My boyfriend and I paid $2,400 for 1-bedroom apartment. Where the hell are you guys living? That's insane. Rent is out of control. Money printer go burr. Yep, that's why devaluation of the money supply has happened. And COVID was a major factor in talking about how the money printer and J-POW and the Fed had to print so much money to make sure that our country didn't go as afloat. And that happened around the world, guys. COVID affected everything, and that we had to print out money and devalue the currency, major inflation, to help support us through that time. Hey, that's just what happened. A lot of people warned about it, but it happened anyways, and a lot of people got saved with the money. Tell me what you think. A lot of people got saved, and hopefully, but a lot of businesses abuse the PPP loans as well. So I don't know. Next video.
There are a lot of reasons why rent is ridiculously high and home ownership has declined in recent years, but there's one man who deserves special attention for his role in fueling the crisis. Steve Schwarzman. Schwarzman is head of the investment management firm Blackstone, which has become one of the largest corporate landlords in recent years. Their central business model revolves around something called the financialization of housing, which was made possible after a policy enacted after 2008. It goes something like this. According to the UN, who wrote an angry letter directly to Schwarzman, Blackstone and its subsidiaries focus on purchasing apartment buildings in undervalued neighborhoods, which often means properties in working-class communities. The corporate landlord then refurbishes the buildings and increases rents, often exorbitantly, driving existing tenants out and replacing them with higher-income tenants. So, a policy the government believed would be a way to get people into unused homes, thus stimulating the market, turned into a predatory lending scheme that charges people exorbitant rates, all without a hope of home ownership. In December 2012, Blackstone was spending $100 million a week on foreclosed properties. And today, Blackstone has raised rents in some units by 43 to 64% in the past 2 years. On top of this, Schwarzman in 2018 spent $6.2 million to stop Proposition 10, a law that would end restrictions on rent control policies, effectively killing the chance of affordable housing in a lot of areas around LA. Georgia even hosted monthly foreclosure auctions, which billionaires nicknamed Super Tuesdays, in which Wall Street moguls and other people like Schwarzman would compete to buy as many homes as they could in the Atlanta area. These actions did more than make a few rich men even richer. They displaced millions of people. As Aaron Glantz writes in his book Homewreckers, talking about the epidemic of foreclosure that has caused a cycle of poverty in black and brown areas around the country, quote, "They were the neighborhoods where vulture capitalists such as Tom Barrack and Steve Schwarzman did most of their buying. The result is that while the African American and Hispanic unemployment rates have fallen to historic lows in the economic recovery, the wealth gap between whites and people of color has grown to levels not seen since discrimination was legal and segregation was encouraged by the government. On top of this, these practices hike up prices for the middle class, drive gentrification, and make buying and renting homes in America so much harder than they already have been." Now we know that Schwarzman's an asshole, but he's only part of the problem. Private equity firms and corporations are able to exert undue influence on the American housing market because the government lets them. As the UCLA Institute for Inequality and Democracy argues, we find that corporate control of residential property is established and maintained through various strategies including dominance in the single-family rental market, mass acquisition of foreclosed properties, destruction of rent-controlled housing, and running eviction machines to displace tenants. We argue that housing grabs must be understood as state-sanctioned racial violence rather than as an aggregation of individual profit-making decisions by landlords. Housing grabs are enabled by policies of deliberate deregulation which also extend to financial lenders and the banking industry. What is this deregulation and how does it perpetuate the housing crisis? That's in the next video.
Yeah, guys, as you can see, this is all structured. This is all systemic, and they're allowing them for profit, which is still capitalism. But there's a point to where it's like you're actually hurting a lot of communities and you're hurting the newer generations that are just trying to build their own wealth. They're trying to, house their own families and just live comfortably in their own country. But they can't because they're getting schemed out by literal hedge funds, massive corporations, massive groups of people that are still colluding. As we saw, they're doing auctions to buy all the most properties that they possibly can, which obviously if there's no supply, the demand's going to go up, increasing those prices even further, which then justifies how they can charge you so much rent. It's all just building on top of each other, guys. But this video has been really long. I hope that you stuck with me. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the button. Subscribe if you want to see more content in the future, and comment down below. Tell me what you think. This is interesting. Tell me if your rent is out of control and what the steps you're going to do. How are you going to deal with it? Are you going to try to petition? How are you going to move in the future? I'm Blahzaye. This has been a long one. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.